August 1944. In the ruins of a fading empire, two German mechanics, Karl Brenner and Otto Weiss, stumbled upon an abandoned U.S. Army GMC truck. At first, it looked like just another war prize. But when they opened its hood, what they saw froze their breath. This machine did not just move differently, it thought differently. In that single moment, they understood the war was no longer about soldiers. It was about innovation and destiny. Before we start, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more powerful stories. Now, let's begin. August 1944. In the smoky silence of northern France, two weary Wehrmacht mechanics, Karl Brenner and Otto Weiss, wandered through the wreckage of a battlefield that no longer looked like victory. The sound of artillery had faded into the distance, leaving only the whisper of wind across twisted metal. The two men were searching for usable scrap, anything that could keep their broken trucks running. Germany's supply lines were bleeding dry, and every bolt, every drop of oil mattered. As the morning fog lifted, Otto noticed a shape half buried in mud near a hedgerow. It was a truck, but not one of theirs. Its design was unfamiliar, angular, purposeful, and strangely alive with precision. The letters U.S. Army were barely visible under a layer of dust. They approached cautiously, expecting damage, but what they found made their hands tremble. The vehicle looked almost untouched. Its tires were intact, its metal flawless, and even the paint carried a subtle sheen despite the mud. Karl pried open the hood. Inside was a sight he had never imagined. The engine layout was efficient beyond belief. Clean lines, smooth fittings, and electrical systems that spoke of an engineering world far ahead of their own. It was not just built, it was crafted with intelligence. He ran his fingers along the components, whispering to Otto that this was something extraordinary. "Look at this wiring," he murmured. "They have standardized every part. Nothing wasted, nothing overdone." Otto leaned closer, inspecting the spark plugs and the cooling system. Each detail told a story of industrial power that Germany could no longer match. Their factories were scattered by bombings, their workers exhausted, their resources vanishing. Yet here was a truck built with abundance and foresight. The Americans were fighting a different kind of war, one powered not by desperation, but by production, planning, and relentless innovation. When Karl turned the ignition, the engine responded instantly. No grinding, no hesitation, just a smooth, deep hum that sounded like the heartbeat of an unstoppable force. The two men exchanged a look that needed no words. In that sound, they heard the truth they had feared but never admitted. Germany's fate was sealed not on the battlefield, but in the factories oceans away. They sat in silence, surrounded by the ruins of their own machines. Otto looked at the GMC's flawless components, and for the first time, he felt the weight of inevitability. The Americans were not merely soldiers. They were engineers of destiny. Every bolt of this truck carried the message of an empire that knew how to think ahead, to build for endurance rather than glory. As the day faded into dusk, the two mechanics realized that their tools, their training, and their loyalty could no longer fix what was broken. This capture truck was more than a vehicle. It was a prophecy. And as its engine echoed through the empty fields, it spoke of a future where precision would conquer pride, and where innovation, not ideology, would decide the fate of nations. That night, Karl and Otto did not sleep. They sat beside the captured truck beneath the dim light of a shattered barn roof, listening to the faint hum of an engine that still felt alive. Every sound from that machine seemed to whisper a truth they could no longer deny. It was as if the metal itself carried the spirit of an empire that was winning not by luck or faith, but by sheer mastery of creation. Otto stared at the glowing dashboard, wondering how a nation an ocean away could build something so perfect while their own factories struggled to produce spare parts. When dawn broke, Karl decided to examine every inch of the truck. He removed panels, traced wiring, and studied how the components fit together with mathematical precision. Each discovery deepened his unease. The simplicity of the design was terrifying. Everything could be replaced, repaired, or improved with ease. It meant that behind every American soldier stood an entire world of supply, a vast unseen army of workers, engineers, and thinkers. Carl realized that this truck represented a civilization that had already moved beyond survival. It had learned how to build for the future. He turned to Otto and said quietly, "This is not a war machine. It is a statement." Otto nodded, his eyes heavy with understanding. They had been taught that Germany's engineering was unmatched, that discipline and willpower could overcome any obstacle. But here, in the mud of France, they were holding proof that the world had changed. While Germany built weapons of pride, America built tools of endurance. The difference was fatal. They tried to drive the truck back to their unit, but along the way they saw German convoys broken down, engines smoking, soldiers pushing half-dead vehicles. The contrast was unbearable. The captured GMC moved like a living creature, steady, confident, unstoppable. Its power mocked the weakness of everything around it. Each mile drove the truth deeper into their hearts. Otto whispered that perhaps victory had never been possible. Not because their soldiers lacked courage, but because their nation had run out of time. As they reached their camp, the other soldiers gathered around the truck in disbelief. Some admired it, others dismissed it as luck. But Carl and Otto said nothing. They knew what it meant. They knew this truck was not just a machine, but a mirror reflecting Germany's failure to adapt. It showed what happens when innovation is sacrificed for ideology. Days later, when Allied planes thundered overhead and the horizon burned with fire, Carl thought about that engine's quiet hum. He remembered how smoothly it had started, how perfectly it had worked. He realized that this sound, the harmony of design and purpose, was the true anthem of victory. The war would end and borders would shift, but the idea behind that machine would endure. When Germany finally collapsed, Carl survived. Years later, in a rebuilt Europe, he found himself working in a small factory under American supervision. One morning, he saw a new truck roll off the line, modern, efficient, and familiar. The emblem on the front bore no flags, no symbols of conquest, just progress. He ran his hand across the metal and smiled faintly. History, he thought, does not belong to those who fight the hardest. It belongs to those who build the smartest.